Hi there, I hope you're well. In this one, it is my absolute pleasure to formally launch the next 10-minute workshop product, the 10-minute workshop Router MultiJig. The MultiJig covers 7 common tasks that would usually need a dedicated jig or template. And if you've caught any of the recent videos, you'll have seen examples of these being shown with prototype jigs or pre-production samples. This right here is the finished product, and I just want to quickly say thank you so much to everyone who came to visit the stand and see the jig in the flesh at Maker Central at the weekend, and also at the Materials and Finishes show recently. It was great to see everybody and have a bit of a chat. Now, as I mentioned before, the jig covers 7 broad use cases. There are 3 types of handle cutout, 4 sizes of bar handle fixing positions. There's a run of 5 holes on 32mm centers for shelf pins, for example. Concealed hinge and hinge plate marking positions are offset dog hole extension holes for a traditional 96mm grid MFT top. There are inline dog hole extensions for alternative 128mm MFT tops, and there are corner radii that'll give you 4 different corner sizes. Now, there's nothing especially new in any of that. Maybe the butterfly wings sort of cutout shapes and the 128mm extension holes. Haven't seen that before, but I'm not aware of anybody else putting them all together into a single jig before. So let's go through these one by one and in a little bit more detail. Of course, if you don't need that, if you've already seen enough, then these are available in the store now. Links on screen and down below, as always. So whenever I use my handle cutout template in a video, most recently in the oak drawer fronts, I always get questions about it. They're easy enough to make, but you do need a large hole saw, so they're not for everyone, and certainly not worth buying a large hole saw just to make a template. Anyway, as I said, I knew that I needed to make the handle cutouts for this tool tote and also the recess handles as well, so it seemed like a good idea to combine them into a simple router jig that uses a 30mm guide bush and a 1/2" 12 or 13mm bit. These reference pins locate the jig against the edge of the workpiece for my standard sized cutout with a flush trim bit, but by varying the size of the bit, the position of the jig, and the size of the guide bush, you can get different sized handle cutouts to suit whatever project you're working on, and all from the same jig. Of course, not all handles are cutouts. There are bar handles as well, and the jig has positions for handles at 160, 128, 96 and 64mm centers. A 30mm guide bush locates the router precisely, and if you need the Porter cable style 2 brass ring type of guide bush, then I recommend this one from Trend UK. It's the Trend GB-US30. It's available from Amazon, and I'll link this up down below, but otherwise any standard 30mm guide bush will fit. The bar handle holes can be set back from the edge of the workpiece by 37mm, either by using the pins provided or by lining up the edge of the jig, and there's a vertical center notch between each pair and a horizontal one as well if you prefer to line up against a pencil mark. By the way, although bar handle screws are typically 4mm, I do recommend using a 5mm bit for this, as it gives a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of adjustment later on. Of course, with 128mm and 64mm positions, it would be silly not to add one in the middle, and as they're already set back 37mm from the edge of the jig, it makes for a perfect run of 5 shelf pin holes on 32mm centers. And as I've mentioned before in other videos, I do recommend using a 4.76mm or 5/16 of an inch bit for these, as I find it's a much better fit for standard 5mm shelf pins, although of course you should use whatever size bit that suits the pins that you're using. And 96mm, yes, that's familiar, isn't it? Yeah, as we saw in the recent Traxel Launchpad video, one of the cheapest and easiest ways to get a straight cut with an MFT top is to use a pair of taller bench dogs like these Bench Dogs Co-UK quad dogs and just butt the rail up against them. The problem is that your crosscut is limited to around 550mm by the bench dogs themselves, and your cut line falls across a column of holes because that's just how it works out with a standard guide rail and MFT top. The way to extend the crosscut on an MFT is to bore another hole in the top closer to the edge, and if you offset this, center it between the columns, then as well as extending the crosscut capacity, this also puts the cut line over into the safe zone between the columns as well. Now, normally with a jig like this, you'd have a 30mm bench dog of some kind to locate it. And while they're available, they can be a little bit pricey. So I've come up with these 3D printed dog collars in two sizes, one that fits the 20mm quad dogs that you probably already have, and one for a standard bench dog with a 25mm head, if you prefer to use those. These two collars are different shapes because if you're using the taller 20mm quad dogs, they actually get in the way of most routers, so you'll need to remove them after clamping the jig down, and that's where the flats on either side of the collars will come in handy, so you can get a set of grips on them if you need to. The dog collars for the standard bench dog are altogether neater, and they sit flush with the surface of the jig, so they don't need to be removed. The jig also does something similar for the Wolfcraft MFT alike bench that I looked at recently, but in this case the extended holes need to be in line with the existing column, as this grid has holes that are unusually on 128mm centers. So that's handle cutouts, shelf pin holes, bar handle positions, MFT extension holes on 96 and 128mm centers. What else could I fit in? Well, how about concealed hinge and hinge plate positions? Given the size of the jig and what's going on in there already, I couldn't make these work with a router and guide bush, but a simple awl is all you need to mark these up, and then you can drill them out in the usual way. And finally, how about a corner radius or 4? Yeah, each corner of the jig has a different radius, and at R30, R22.5, 15 and 10mm, they should cover most of your corner radius needs for most smaller projects. So that's a fair bit packed into a small slab of precision machine Velcro mat. You might be wondering what all this is going to cost. Well, as I said before, most of these functions are available as standalone jigs, whether that's the handle cutouts, the bar handle positions, shelf pin holes, or corner radius templates, or concealed hinge markers. But if you add all those up, then it's coming to a decent chunk of change, especially when you bear in mind that some of those are just drilling guides, not actual router templates. I'm not aware of anyone doing the offset MFT extension hole in a jig. If you are, then let me know in the comments, because I'll be interested to hear about it. And I know that the Path Guide 2 can do them, but that's on a different level of cost altogether. And I don't know if the Path Guide 2 will also do the inline extension holes for the 128mm grid for the Wolfcraft, for example. So in the context of all that, what does this cost? Well, how about £35 plus VAT and shipping? You'll get the plain jig, a pair of stainless steel reference pins, and a cotton bag to keep it all together. There's also a full bundle that has all of the above, plus a pair of each type of dog collar, a 5mm 1/4" shank spiral upcut bit that I recommend for bar handles, and a 4.76mm spiral upcut bit on a 1/4" shank that I recommend for the shelf pin holes. The full bundle is £65 plus VAT and shipping, and both of these options are available in the store now. Now, those are the only two options that I'm offering. If you wanted to mix and match, then the bits are available individually from Rennie Tools. I'll link them up down below, and the dog collars are available from Stu Parker at SP Wood Creations. Links down below as always. So there we are, that's the 10-minute workshop Router MultiJig. One jig, many uses. The first production run of these has been available to Plus members and newsletter subscribers for a week or two. There's a few of that run remaining. The next production is in hand, so if it goes out of stock, it'll be available for pre-order in the store, and it'll ship just as soon as that stock comes in. But if you have any questions, please ask them down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But I'll call this one done for this week. Thanks so much for taking a look, and I'll see you all again very soon. All right, take care.